Good evening. Your credibility, the senator says to the attorney general, has been breached to the point of being actionable. It would be one thing if that were Arlen Specter saying that to Janet Reno, or even Pat Leahy saying that to Alberto Gonzalez. But in our fifth story on the countdown, our government of the people, by the president, for the president, is so far gone that was Republican Arlen Specter today saying that to Republican Attorney General Alberto Gonzalez. The good news is the attorney general wrote new material. In addition to his right hand, Mr. Gonzalez raising more than a few eyebrows this morning in room 216 of the Hart Senate office building, as well as the possibility of raising a perjury investigation against himself. This while trying to clear up the contradictions from his previous two appearances. At an earlier hearing, Mr. Gonzalez telling the lawmakers that he did not know of any major dispute within the Justice Department about the domestic spying program. But then in May, the former Deputy Attorney General, James Comey, came forward with the remarkable story of a massive dispute over which several department officials threatened to resign. Mr. Comey describing an incident during which Mr. Gonzalez, in his role as White House counsel at that time, tried to get a heavily sedated Attorney General Ashcroft to sign off on the warrantless wiretapping from his hospital bed, even though the powers of his office had been temporarily assigned over to Mr. Comey. At a June news conference, Mr. Gonzalez acknowledged that James Comey had in fact been talking about the highly classified program which the president confirmed to American people some time ago. Despite that, Mr. Gonzalez trying to claim today that he had been visiting Mr. Ashcroft's hospital bedside only because of a dispute over another secret intelligence program, and only because congressional leaders, the so-called Gang of Eight, wanted him to. The reminder again, Senator Specter is a Republican.
What credibility is left for you when you say there's no disagreement in your party to going to the hospital to see Attorney General Ashcroft under sedation to try to get him to approve the program?
The disagreement that occurred and the reason for the visit to the hospital center was about other intelligence activities. It was not about the terrorist surveillance program that the president announced to the American people. Now, I would like the opportunity.
Attorney General, do you expect us to believe that?
Well, may I have the opportunity to talk about another very important meeting in connection with the hospital visit that puts it into context? There was an emergency meeting in the White House Situation Room that afternoon. It involved senior members of the administration and the bipartisan leadership of the Congress, both House and Senate, as well as the bipartisan leadership of the House and Senate Intel committees, a gang of 8. The purpose of that meeting was for the White House to advise the Congress that Mr. Comey had advised us that he could not approve the continuation of vitally important intelligence activities despite the repeated approvals during the past 2 years of the same activities.
Okay, assuming you're leveling with us on this occasion. No, I want to move to the point about how can you get approval from Ashcroft for anything when he's under sedation and incapacitated, for anything.
May I continue the story, Ms.
No, I want you to answer my question.
Senator, obviously, there was concern about General Ashcroft's condition, and we would not have sought, nor did we intend to get any approval from General Ashcroft if, in fact, he wasn't fully competent to make that decision. But there are no rules governing whether or not General Ashcroft can decide. I'm feeling well enough to make this decision.
But Attorney General Gonzalez, he had already given up his authority as Attorney General. And Ashcroft was no longer Attorney General.
And he could always reclaim that. There are no rules
while he's in the hospital under sedation.
Again, we didn't know. We knew, of course, that he was ill, that he had surgery.
Not making any progress here. Let me go to another topic.
Mr. Gonzalez also doing himself or the administration few favors when it came to the question of whether those 9 U.S. attorneys had been forced to resign with cause.
How many, this is important, how many U.S. attorneys did you approve to be summarily fired?
Senator, there may have been others. I would be happy to get back to you with that kind of information about who has left. But I don't know the answer to your question. But I can certainly find out.
Don't know after all we've been through, the hearing after hearing after hearing? I'm asking what the total number were.
Well, certainly Mr. Cummings was asked to leave. Mr. Graves was asked to leave. I'm not aware, sitting here today, of any other U.S. attorney who was asked to leave, except there were some instances where people were asked to leave, quite frankly, because there was legitimate cause.
So you're saying these were asked to leave because the cause was not legitimate?
I'm not. No, what I'm saying is wrongdoing, misconduct. There may have been some. There were, in fact, I'm sure there were others.
What kind of misconduct?
Well, and I'm not suggesting any of this conduct happened, but for example, an inappropriate relationship, taking action that is where you have a direct conflict of interest to help out a buddy, making those kinds, something like that I would say would constitute misconduct. And there
were those specific things involved in any U.S. attorney that was terminated?
Good question.
No.
Sitting 2 rows directly behind Mr. Gonzalez at the hearing today, our own Dana Milbank, national political reporter of the Washington Post. Dana, good evening.
Good evening, Keith.
If the Attorney General was telling the truth today, didn't he confirm the existence of yet another secret domestic spying program? And if he wasn't telling the truth, did he just open himself to a perjury investigation? And either way, is this a problem for the administration?
Well, I guess we could say he's lying or he's spying. But it would be a problem for the administration, except that it's not at all clear that there's anything that Congress can do about this, as we've seen on the various efforts to declare other White House officials in contempt of Congress. All the administration has to do is say, well, we're going to direct our prosecutors not to prosecute that case. But this was, regardless of the outcome, this was a woeful performance by the Attorney General today, and it really just sort of made everybody cringe.
So there's a House panel that's likely to vote on contempt charges tomorrow. If the full House should vote and authorize contempt charges tomorrow, who would enforce it in the Justice Department?
Well, that's the thing. As my newspaper has reported, the president is directing the U.S. attorneys not to pursue these cases. This creates we're in uncharted areas constitutionally here. Senator Specter today was talking about alternatives of actually having the trial in the Senate, perhaps. Then you would get into this rather bizarre episode where if he's convicted, what do you do? Send the Senate Sergeant-at-Arms out there to arrest the Attorney General, who presumably amasses the Secret Service or something.
In that exchange, in less confrontational theories, in that exchange at the end there with Senator Feinstein describing theoretical, hypothetical firing offenses, not actual ones, of course, he used this phrase, a direct conflict of interest to help out a buddy. Was this revelatory? Should we bring Freud in on this? Was he talking about himself as the president's buddy?
Right. I mean, there's no accident that the president has called him his lawyer, mi abogado. And the Attorney General, this has sort of been his downfall, has continued to act that way even when he's not the president's lawyer. In a sense, we can sort of see why the president may have an interest in keeping Gonzalez in there. What Gonzalez has managed to do is allow this whole scandal over the firing of the U.S. attorneys to metastasize into all these other issues, the political hiring and firing, questions of perjury and witness coaching, abuses of the Patriot Act, the surveillance program, this bizarre hospital visit to Ashcroft. In a way, it's become so diffuse, there's so much rotten that has been discovered within the Justice Department that in a way it prevents Democrats or, for that matter, Republicans like Arlen Specter from burrowing in on any one of those.
And to that point, Specter's idea about a special prosecutor, does this have legs, or is he just trotting that out to make himself look good?
Well, that's the problem with Specter, is he often roars and nothing actually backs it up. Senator Lott, the number 2 Republican in the Senate, was very cool to that idea. However, the Attorney General said that will be left up to the Solicitor General, Paul Clement, who's actually an Ashcroft guy and known as being a straight shooter. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that a special prosecutor could be named.
Short of that, and just sort of focusing back on this one hearing, you've been to many of them over the years. Have you ever seen this level of non-criminal contempt, of skepticism, if not outright anger and contempt from the senators of both parties towards a member of a president's cabinet?
Yes, I don't know if he's in contempt of Congress, but Congress is in contempt of him very clearly. And Dianne Feinstein said it. In all the time she's been in the Senate, she's never seen anything quite like that. And even when Chairman Leahy was swearing him in, he emphasized, and nothing but the truth, as if he were talking to a child. And they really were speaking down from the dais today as if dealing with a child who didn't quite get it.
He testified that way. I guess they have to address him that way. Dana Milbank of MSNBC and the Washington Post. As always, Dana, great thanks.
Recuse me.